Hello zusammen, and welcome back to the channel. We're glad that you're here. As ever, we thank our Patreon members who made this video possible. Without their help, we don't get anywhere, nothing gets done. And if you like what we do and you want to see more videos like what we're doing, please consider joining our Patreon community. The information is going to be in the link. That being said, let's get into it. This is what a German driver's license looks like. Without a doubt, getting my German driver's license was one of the most difficult things that I have ever had to do in my life. And if you know anything about my history, that's saying a hell of a lot. Of course, it naturally follows that succeeding in getting my license is one of the most rewarding and satisfying things that I've ever done. And it has done an awful lot to boost my confidence for living in a new country. In fact, I feel much more integrated into German society now that I have this license than I did before. I actually feel like I'm part of the community instead of just a visiting foreigner or a tourist. And if I can succeed in getting my German driver's license, believe me, I can succeed here in Germany and going to law school. So let's spend a few minutes talking about how all that happened. First question is, do you really need to get a German driver's license? Well, first things first. A German driver's license is called a Führerschein. And since that is now what I'm used to calling my German license, you might hear me use that term or that word from time to time, so bear with me. Führerschein, driver's license, same thing. So the first thing that we need to recognize is that there is a difference between getting a driver's license and getting a car. Of course, you can have a license and not drive a vehicle or even own a vehicle, but you absolutely cannot drive a vehicle or own it without having a license. For instance, if you're going to live in any European city, there is absolutely going to be first-class public transportation available to you, unlike anything you've ever experienced in the US. And if you live in the countryside or the surrounding towns, you're still going to be able to get to and from work or the major places you need to go by using buses and trains. They're almost always clean and comfortable, they almost always run on time, and there's no danger of you being mugged or raped or kidnapped on them. They're very safe. And conveniently, during daylight hours, they run about every 10 minutes. Maybe I should do an entire video on public transportation. But anyways, keeping that in mind, European cities, damn it, were not designed for modern traffic. And that means that the streets, I can't talk today. That means that the streets are very narrow and finding places to park is very difficult. That being said, you really don't need a car and maybe don't even want to be bothered if you're going to live within the city. Keep in mind too, that there's going to be times when it's economical or convenient for you to rent a car or truck. Maybe you want to move to a new apartment in the countryside, so you're going to need a truck to move your stuff from here to there. Maybe you just want to go to a picnic far out into the countryside, and for that, you're going to need a driver's license. Let me point out also that a German driver's license is valid throughout the entire European Union. With my license, I can drive in Sweden or France or Italy or Greece, easy. So that being said, even if you don't intend to own a car, you're still going to want a European driver's license. And so let's take a moment and talk about exactly how you do that, especially if you already have an American driver's license. The second question is, do you need to convert your American driver's license to a European one? And the short answer is yes, you do need to convert your American driver's license to a European driver's license. After your feet touch European soil and you receive a tourist or a week visa stamped in your passport, the clock is ticking. Your American license will remain valid for only 6 months. And during those 6 months, you can drive as freely as you want to. You can rent a car, you can buy a car. You're welcome to tour the entire country. However, after those 6 months have passed, you must have a valid European driver's license in order to continue driving legally. And please, please, please don't be fooled by this so-called international driver's license. It's not actually a license to drive. It is only a translation of your actual valid driver's license. It does not have any value whatsoever except as a translation. If you do not have a valid driver's license issued by your government backing it up, then that international license is completely worthless. Please do not make that mistake. And that's going to bring us to the third question. How do I begin the process of obtaining a European license? The process for obtaining a Führerschein here in Germany is incredibly difficult if you're starting from scratch. Germans take the driving privilege, like they do everything else, very seriously. They take the training of drivers far more seriously than any American state. As an example, in my home state of Florida, on the theoretical exam, there are potentially 84 questions that they can pull from. Here in Germany, however, there are over 1,300 potential questions on that theoretical exam that you need to learn before attempting to take any test. And there's a good bit of expense and headache involved as well. If you want to know how to get a European license from scratch, I could make a separate video on that, but let's stay general. And for now, all you need to know is that starting from scratch will cost you about 2,000 euro. And I'm serious. That's a far cry from the $48 that it costs in Florida. But anyways, if you have a license in most states in the United States, you're going to be able, with relative ease, to transfer that from an American license to a German Führerschein. As you can see by this chart, there are 27 states plus Puerto Rico in which you have to do nothing more than provide some documentation, pay about 40 euro, and then go sit down to the driver's license office and hand in your license. That easy. If you are from any of these 10 states and from the District of Columbia, you must hand in your license plus take a theoretical test. That's it. You'll only need to take the theoretical test. And I'll explain that test in detail in just a moment. But you need to know that for preparing for that test will cost you around 200 euro. That's not cheap, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than paying the 2,000 euro that Germans have to pay. And if you've got sharp eyes, you probably noticed that there are 13 states that did not appear on either list. Well, as my friend Nathan from the great state of Montana found out, that means that you have no ability to merely exchange your American license for a German Führerschein. Instead, you'll have to go through the entire process from scratch, which means you'll have to pay the full 2,000 euro. But if you're not from one of those 13 states, you're only going to have to either take the theoretical exam, which consists of 30 questions, or you can just hand it in and get it exchanged. Question number 4, what additional documentation do I need? When you appear at the driver's license office here in Germany, which is properly called the Führerscheinstelle, you're going to need to have obtained a few documents ahead of time. First, you'll need an Erste-Hilfe-Karte. What this means is that you'll have to attend a lengthy advanced first aid course and become certified as a first responder, which we call in German Erste Hilfe. And yes, you heard me correctly. In order to legally drive in Europe, you must be certified in advanced first aid. That's a huge difference than in the United States. In Florida, for example, if you're in a serious accident, you need to call emergency services. In Europe, you're expected to render immediate life-saving aid to anybody involved in the accident before emergency services arrive. Second, you'll need to have obtained the results of an official vision test. These are usually done for free at any place that you can purchase prescription eyeglasses. I got mine done for free at Fielman's. It was fast, convenient, and cheap, so that's not really a complicated requirement. Third, you need an official translation of your license from English into German. This cost me about 50 euro, but again, it was pretty fast and it was pretty easy, not that complicated. Fourth, you'll need your passport or a German ID card, of course. Fifth, you'll need a passport photo of yourself according to the German rules. This means no smiling, looking straight ahead, face unobstructed, no hats, no sunglasses, and so on. That's the reason that my photo looks like a mugshot. Well, that's why everybody's does. And finally, you'll need your American license. After you've accumulated all of your documents, you'll go to the government website of your European city and book an appointment. When you show up at your appointment, you'll bring all your documents with you plus 40 euro. That's the processing fee. And if everything is in order, you'll be sent home to await a letter. If you're from one of those states that allows you to simply exchange your license, about 4 weeks later, you're going to get a letter in the mail, through the mail, telling you to book a second appointment in order for you to bring your license down to the Führerscheinstelle and actually exchange it. No, they're not going to mail it to you. But if you're from one of the states which requires you to take the theoretical test, about 3 or 4 weeks later, you're going to receive a letter authorizing you to call a particular phone number in order to book an appointment to take the theoretical test. Whew. At the appointed time and place, you'll show up with 19 other people. You'll be ushered into a room with 20 chairs in front of 20 desks on which are resting 20 tablets. After receiving instructions from the supervisor, you'll begin your test. Cheating is impossible. You'll be closely monitored, and there's no point in looking at anyone else's tablet because each one of you will be receiving a different version of the test. As I mentioned earlier, the test questions are pulled from a pool of 1,300 possible questions. Of course, you're only going to be expected to answer 30 of them. And depending on the difficulty level of the question, you can only miss 1 or 2 questions. If you miss more than that, you fail. You'll have to book a new appointment and then come back down and do the whole process all over again. So let's not kid ourselves. The test is very, very difficult, but not impossible. I mean, hey, I passed on my first try. And although admittedly, most people must take at least one retest, if you pass the test at some point, you will then be required to book yet another appointment to come back and pick up your German driver's license. Is the process needlessly difficult and annoying? Yes, but it is doable. And keep in mind that the German government is as much a bureaucracy as any other government in the Western Hemisphere. So let's not be surprised that it's just that complicated or that you have to book that many appointments. Definitely it's more complicated and more expensive than the US. But I think the license here, being as difficult as it is, has more credibility. Just like always, we hoped you really enjoyed this video. I hope you found it as entertaining as you did informative. Now, you can imagine there are quite a few areas here in which I could have gone into greater detail. And for our Patreon members, if you're looking for videos that are more detailed on particular areas, you know how to shoot me a message and go ahead and we'll try to put those videos together for you. Those are videos we'll keep on the Patreon page. Other than that, you know that I wish health for all of you, and you know that I believe that if you're not happy with your situation, you need to do something about it. This is one of those steps that you can take. Granted, it took me longer than a year to get my driver's license, but that had absolutely everything to do with a horrific schedule at work and difficulty dealing with the corona restrictions because all our government offices here were shut down and they were only letting in like 5 people per day. It was just craziness. So it took me a little longer than it'll take you. But this is a concrete step, and I will tell you, let me show you once again my driver's license, and you'll see that nowhere on here does it mention the fact that I am a convicted felon or that I've been to prison. Because over here, they don't care. So, food for thought. Hope you all are staying healthy, and I hope to hear from you soon. Until next time, viele Grüße, bis nächstes Mal. Tschüss.